Hello, it's my turn to do some Bible journaling today. I'm going to look at Psalm chapter 71 and particularly at verse 8, which says, "My mouth is filled with your praise, declaring your splendour all day long." I've done a bit of prep on this page already in terms of I've used my Liquitex matte gel medium and foam applicator to just prepare the page because I'm going to be using some distress inks, and if I don't prep it then they're going to bleed straight through. I'm also just going to mask off the verse that I want to focus on, if I can undo the washi tape. So a bit of washi tape that I'm just going to stick and pull off my leg a couple of times. It doesn't need to be that fat actually, so let's make it a little bit thinner. And I'm just going to use that to cover verse 8. The other thing I've done in advance is I want to make it quite a pop-arty page. So I've just drawn some lips onto some of these post-it notes. Now these post-it notes are great. I bought them from WH Smith, but they are mostly sticky and only a thin strip that isn't. So for Bible journaling, they're brilliant because most of the post-it note will be stuck to the page. So what I did was I just drew out sort of a cartoony pair of lips onto the top post-it note. And then because I want a few copies of it, I cut out I think it's about 5 of them all at once, so just cutting straight through all of them. I want to mask these off because I'm going to come back and do those in bright colours afterwards, and I want to put a background down on the page first, so I think I'm only going to use 4 of them actually. So to put the background down, I'm going to use a distress ink. This one's in shaded lilac, and the way I tend to use distress inks, I've put a little dot of Velcro on the back and one of these, I think they're called blending brushes, and then a blending tool. So just kind of dab it a little bit to pick up some of the colour. You don't need lots actually, and a little bit does go a long way. And then just blend it on your page. I don't know if you can see that that's starting to turn a sort of a purpley blue kind of a colour, a bit like a lilac really. And I'm going to cover all of the background just with a gentle colour. So that's going to take me a few minutes. The reason I chose this verse, I've been struggling a little bit, if I'm honest, journaling recently. Part of it's been finding time, definitely finding energy, having gone back to work after the long summer holidays, trying to get my children back off to school and all the trauma that that might bring at the start of a new year. And I've just been finding it really, really hard to be able to journal and to be able to find time. I think as well because I was at New Wine over the summer and had an amazing time there as part of the arts team. But I think sometimes when you've had an amazing time, it's then hard to refocus back in sort of normal everyday life, back onto the scripture. And this was a verse that I did as part of a monthly challenge and just kind of read. I just journaled it quickly into my journal into a very small box. And I was quite challenged by the idea that every day my lips will praise. Not just when I feel like it, not just on the good days or when you're away on holiday somewhere like New Wine, but actually every day. And not just in the big things, not just in maybe a time of prayer or worship, but actually in the little things too. So am I praising God with how I'm talking to my children, my husband, with how I'm talking when I'm at work, maybe with the songs that I'm choosing to sing or choosing to listen to, and the words that I'm just saying. And that's been a bit of a challenge to me over the last few weeks. Right, nearly done that one. This bit always takes longer than I think. And hopefully you can see that's just put a really gentle colour. Some areas always work out a bit darker than others. Actually, I'm just going to make sure I've got some in there between the verse and that pair of lips. And around that pair of lips just to make sure. Right, so that was the first colour. And with these blending sponges, I always keep one for each colour, just so I don't end up with everything turning brown. I'm going to use this stencil. I honestly haven't got a clue where I got it from. I think it was probably just off Amazon or somewhere, but I really like the dotty pattern on it, and I think that's quite pop-arty too. And if I can find the end of the washi tape again, I'm just going to stick it onto the page to stop it moving. And then I'm going to choose a contrasting and actually a bit brighter colour to add some detail over the top. So this is another Distress ink, and this one's called Picked Raspberry. It gives you a really bright pink colour, particularly if you use it and press as hard as my children. And I'm just going to use it to add some dots in. So I'm not going to go all over the page for this. I'm just going to pick out some areas and add a bit more detail. Some of the dots are bigger, some of the dots are smaller, which I actually really like. Just the smaller ones you have to work a bit harder to get your ink to go through. So that's done some there. And I'm going to just move the stencil a bit further up the page as well and have a go at doing some a bit further up. So a bit more ink. Sorry. Occupational hazard, I'm afraid, this time of year. I've managed to get myself a cold, as I think probably everybody who works in education has. So yeah, just adding a bit more detail, no real pattern to it. In fact, I'm going to put a bit more down the bottom there just because that bit looks quite plain. Didn't really plan where that was going to go first, but that kind of gives the background a bit more of a texture. So again, just the sponge popped on the back with a Velcro dot. Take those out of the way. I'll clean that up later with a baby wipe. So now I wanted to make the lips stand out a bit more. So if I just pull those bits off, you can actually see the contrast of how white that page was underneath and then where I've added in the colour. So I'm going to use my beautiful Inktense pencils. I've got the set of 72, I'm very blessed, but I'm going to use just a couple of different colours today. So I'm going to start off with the poppy red. Now, if I'm doing something a bit detailed like this, I honestly find the best way to use the Inktense is to just pick up some colour with a paintbrush and then paint it onto the page. Now these dry with a beautiful vibrant colour, very intense colour, and because they're ink based they dry permanent. Now I'm having to be a bit more careful as well, just the Distress inks don't dry permanent, and if I touch those with water it would activate the ink, it would change how it worked on the page, but also would be much more likely to bleed through even having prepared the page. Just be a bit careful around the edges. So I'm going to add the bright red lips. Then in a minute I'm going to add in some teeth, and then once it's all dry I'll outline it as well. Trying to keep my nice straight lines around my lips. So you can always go back and add a bit more colour, and actually I'm going to use a couple of different shades of red to really bold up the lips. That's what my daughter does with her lipstick when she puts red lipstick on, so it must be the right thing to do. So this one was the poppy red colour of the Inktense. You can get them in sets, I think 12, 24, 48, 72. You can also get the Inktense blocks, which work in a similar way, but just a more of a wax crayon kind of a way of buying them, really, whatever you like. The thing I really like about them is just the beautiful vibrant colours. I'm barely using any, and I'm ending up with a nice bold colour that stands out from the Distress inks. Right, so that was the poppy red. Now I've got a darker one, which is called chili red, and I'm just going to use that along the edge of the lips to just darken that bit up a bit, and also gives me a chance, as long as my hands don't shake too much, to make sure I've got a nice straight line. The paintbrush I'm using is a water brush. They're brilliant because it carries the water around with you, so you don't have to keep on dipping it into a pot of water. So they're great for journaling on the go. This is quite a thin one. It's a Derwent number 1. But you can get all sorts of different thicknesses of these, from quite narrow up to really quite fat. All sorts of different brands. I've seen them in Hobbycraft. I've bought them off Amazon. I've also seen them in a shop called Tiger. Some of them, the barrel opens a slightly different way, which can be quite confusing. But they're just a really useful thing for being able to journal on the go. Each of these will be completely unique lips, just because I'm doing them slightly differently each time. I think even if I tried to make them all the same, they'd end up slightly different. And then with the water brush, you literally just sort of scribble with it on a piece of paper until the water comes clear, give it a little bit of squeeze, and then it's ready to pick up whatever colour you want to next time. I'm just going to give these a quick blast with my heat gun, and then I'm going to add some black. Okay, so again with the black, I'm going to use the Inktense. This one's called Ink Black. And again, I'm going to pick it up with a brush. So I want to be able to leave the teeth. So actually I'm going to use a pencil and just sketch those on into each mouth. With the teeth, obviously you can't see all of your teeth when you're smiling or when you're talking, so just kind of 4 or maybe 6 at the top and probably a few less visible at the bottom, just gives you the impression of teeth. So I'm going to fill in the back of the mouth, the bit without your teeth in it, a darker colour. Again, it just makes the teeth stand out, adds to the pop-arty nature. I'm not putting on the black very thickly, which is why it's kind of coming out a bit grey. If I don't like how it looks once it's all finished and dried off later, then I can always go back and add more layers of the colour over the top, but I think that would probably be quite boring for you guys to watch, so I'll just do a quick layer now. Each of the mouths are slightly different. Everyone's teeth are slightly different, aren't they? A bit wonky. The bits you like, the bits you don't like. I've drawn a gap between this one's teeth. I think orthodontists would probably hate that, but I've always thought that that's quite a nice look. That's very pale. Let's go back over that one a bit. It's a bit better. A little bit of fluff on there. Get rid of that quick. And also the Inktense kind of go on a bit like watercolour, so actually even with the black you can still read the words through underneath. I don't personally object too much if I cover the words. I used to, because I've always got another Bible on the shelf. I can always look up a passage online if I can't read it in this one. So there's always ways around it, but I know that's very much a personal preference. But these Inktense, like watercolour, mean that you can usually see through and just give you a kind of, although quite a bright colour, quite a translucent colour. Fab. Clean that brush again. So I'm going to give it another quick dry off, and then I'm going to add some outliney detail to those. So the pen I'm going to use to do that is a Posca pen, quite a fine, I think it might be the 0.7mm tip. Posca pens are great because they give you a very vibrant an opaque line. It's a bit like having an acrylic paint in a pen. Apparently they're very good for decorating stones or for writing on glass and things, but I think they are water based, so I'm not sure whether you'd be able to leave the stones outside. So I'm just going to use these to add a bit of detail, to outline the teeth and make it that kind of pop arty style. I'm not moving this too much so you can still see the image as it records. It's a bit tricky down towards the spine to kind of squeeze it in a bit more. Okay, I'm also going to unpeel the washi tape over the word. A real trick with washi tape, if you're using it on your Bible pages, is to just stick it to your trousers or the sleeves of your t-shirt and lift it off a couple of times. It just kind of loosens the glue and means it's easier to pull off, and then without damaging your page. The other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to write the words "declaring your splendour" all day long, which I'm just going to put in this space down at the bottom. So I'm going to write them with, oh, helps if I put the right lid on the right pen. I'm just going to write them first of all with a pencil to check I can get my spacing all okay. Sometimes if you're writing a word, it's actually more helpful to start with the middle letter And then you can make sure that you've got space to fit all of the word. Declaring. I wonder if I can fit your and splendour. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So 7 letters in. Puts me at the P. By doing it in pencil, it means, of course, that if I haven't done it right, if I put a spelling mistake in, which wouldn't be the first time, I've got a chance to correct that before I go over it with the pen. Again, I'm just going to use the Posca pen to go over those letters and just make them really stand out. Deliberately using quite a basic font, quite clear to read. Just, I guess, a bit jaunty in terms of letters at different heights. And kind of with the letters with the loops, just keeping those nice and small. All day long. I'm going to underline all. And the other thing I'm just going to do is I'm going to date it. So today is the 3rd of October 2018. I think that's a really helpful way to just be able to look back and to see what you've been up to see what God's been teaching you at different stages. So once that's all dry, I'll go back and just rub off the pencil rubbings. But I think that's that page done.